Are you ready to take your business to the next level? Every day there are countless books and articles that are published offering the key on how to make your business a success. It's easy to feel overwhelmed trying to keep up and run your business. That's why Deb Creer created the Business Power Hour. Keep up on the latest trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. Let the Business Power Hour do the heavy work for you.
Good morning. Good morning. I am Deb Creer, and I am passionate about giving professionals the tools that they need to make themselves and their businesses as successful as possible. And today is going to be a great program. In a lot of ways, I'm going to go back to my roots because we're going to be talking about media. And when I really launched into my career, I was a public relations professional. I worked for the American Cancer Society. I did all sorts of different things, but I worked for the media back in the dark ages. And we'll talk a little bit about that. But please join me in welcoming Sam Anthony to our program today. Welcome, Sam. How are you doing?
Great. Thanks for having me on your show.
Fabulous. Well, let me tell people just a little bit about you, and then we'll jump into this. So Sam Anthony possesses over 2 decades of expertise in the online media industry, propelled by his conviction that the internet would revolutionize traditional media and usher in a more vibrant and adaptable media landscape. He has played a pivotal role in designing and implementing technology that has enabled thousands of journalists to seamlessly transition into this new digital realm. As the founder of YourNews Media, Sam is dedicated to establishing a media platform that unveils the truth without censorship. His mission is to restore the power of the press to the people, where he firmly believes it rightfully belongs. Oh my gosh, we are going to have one heck of a discussion. So again, Sam, welcome.
Thank you. I know you're going to like this show because this is right up your alley.
Well, tell us a little bit more about how it is that you got to where you are today, because you did take kind of a different route.
Oh God, completely different. My background is not media; it's investment banking. So my business was always capital raising for deals, and
Okay.
me and a couple of guys, we believed that the internet was going to transform the landscape of media. Okay. Well, but this is going back a long time ago. And, nobody bought that story back then. I mean, nobody.
Right. It's like, no, we have newspapers, we have magazines.
Yeah, they're not, I mean, if you would have told somebody back in, 2001, 2002, 2005, that the Chicago Tribune eventually will print its last paper, nobody would have believed you, or the Atlanta Constitution Journal. And, so we set out to build a platform, and we put a lot of money into it, our own, and we failed miserably, right? I mean, it just didn't work because
before its time.
Yeah, but not only that, the whole industry's kind of evolved. And so what we thought was the right way to go really wasn't. So, then I picked up another partner. We went a different route. We had to come up with all new technology. And so here's the key, because remember, I do local news. Anybody could do national news. It's the local news. So like in your market, I have tons of news reporters that submit content in the Atlanta market and all over the United States. So the model that we have is for not only local, state, regional, national. So we can do right down to a specific city, but the key to this whole game is local news. And so how do you get it? How do you do it cost effectively? So we started another website, and what we did was how Fox, CBS, ABC, how they have the networks with the local Fox, CBS, ABC,
right? They're affiliates.
Yeah, they're affiliates. So they're doing the local while the networks are doing the national, right? The national networks. So we partnered with independent radio stations that had news, like a news director with local news stringers, right? Makes sense. And for them, radio and TV get a small piece of the ad pie because their reach is so broad, and 99% of the businesses, you're not driving 3 counties over to get a piece of pizza.
Right.
So, they get very small amounts of ad revenue, and they're more the businesses that want broader reach, the lawyers and stuff like that, the car dealers. What our product does is it localizes the content, so it attracts a new customer base. So we started building an affiliate network, and I had well over half the country covered. And then what happened was when COVID hit, all these people they started to drop off our network, all the affiliates. And so I know them. So I called them and, I talked to them and they said, well, we had to let our news person go. You want to know who the first person to go is? The news people.
Right. The person who's responsible for what you're doing.
So I'm like, well, don't you have a news station? How are you getting rid of the news people? So, and normally it's the news director and a couple, 2-3 stringers running around. They started to get rid of all of them. And then a couple of them told me, you better change your model because terrestrial radio is not going to be around much longer. Right. It's going to be replaced. And, and I'm like, oh God. So, this is when, I always tell people I probably do my best work of thinking in the middle of the night because I'm not sleeping, and so that's when, I came up with a monetization model, very similar to YouTube. And so, then what happened was, I have a development team and we had to, sit down and kind of hash things through. And nothing is easy. You got to explain your vision and you got to explain to them. And then they're coming back with, well, that can't be done because of it. And then finally one day they're like, oh, we can do that. And I'm like, okay. So basically it was like taking the engine and pulling it out of a car and then you have to put in a whole new engine. So and then we had to test it. And so, there's been a lot of years trying to figure all this stuff out. But, you asked me how I got here. And so the new form of media, what we will ultimately become, because we all know they call it the legacy media. So the mainstream media is the legacy media. All that is going to be gone. And the reason is it has nothing to do with myself. It's the younger generation that just doesn't consume information that way. So, I'm 60 years old. I remember when we only had 4 channels. And I know you remember.
I was just thinking that. Yes.
Okay.
I
personally was 3, and I was the channel changer. Okay.
No remote. Yeah. Get up, kid.
I was the
go
remote.
change the channel.
And so now you have, then cable came on. And then I remember one time there was like 1,500 channels. I'm like, who the hell's going to watch that?
Right.
I mean, and then the internet, and with 2005, you had YouTube, and there at the time, I don't know how many YouTube channels there were, but now you got Spotify and you got Rumble and you got all these different choices, and now there's literally millions of people to listen to or watch or whatever it is. So the choices are so fast, and everybody gets their information right here, the younger generation. So there's still a demand for news. It's just how people consume it that's changed. And the platforms are where everybody's going. So really, people say, well, the media is lying. That's why they're going out of business. No, it has nothing to do with it.
Right.
Did you see Adweek's numbers for the first quarter?
No.
By any chance? Oh my God, they were abysmal. Okay. I mean, even Fox, abysmal. I mean, when Joe Rogan is bigger than CNN, MSNBC, Fox, and ABC combined for a day, you got to know things are changing. But that wasn't the interesting news. The interesting news was the age demographic between 25 and 54, which represents from an advertising perspective, the money, right? Okay, that they're starting out, they're getting married, they're having babies, they're buying houses, all the way up to they're retiring, right? That whole piece. They only had a total of 500,000 viewers over 3 months.
Right.
And so where are they going? Well, I'll tell you where. TikTok, Instagram, right? Okay, YouTube. The point is the younger generation doesn't watch mainstream media. That's why it's going out of business. So what I do at the end of the day, because my niche is local news reporting all of the United States, and Deb, you may not know this, but when a journalist gets laid off on LinkedIn, they set their profile to freelancer. Did you know that?
They'll write for anywhere.
for freelancer. Okay. So I remember when there was like only 50,000 freelancers, there's about 500,000 on LinkedIn right now.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy. And there's almost 200,000 students and nobody's hiring these kids because they have nowhere to go because, well, I'm just going to tell you, you were wondering why all the fake news was coming out. And then all of a sudden USAID comes and they find all this money, billions of dollars being funneled to the networks and to independent journalists to write all fake crap. And all that money's dried up. And now this is why you're seeing Colbert gone and and all these other players that are just
Right.
leaving, it's because they're being let go because the money's drying up. I don't give them more than 3 to 5 years. They're going to be in the red real soon. And
Right.
then and the only thing keeping them afloat right
Mm-hmm.
now is the pharmaceutical stuff. That's it.
I know. Oh my gosh, so many drug ads, and that may or may not be going away. That's one of the other things that's
It won't
up there.
matter. It won't
Yeah.
matter. The average age of the cable news viewer is 72 years old.
Right.
So
Yeah.
anybody can do the math on that one. Okay.
Yeah.
They're not going to be, hold on. We still got one guy that's watching.
Yeah, we got to keep on the air. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, the legacy media, and I love this because, yeah, like I said, I grew up with 3 television channels. And Walter Cronkite, right? When Walter spoke, you listened. I mean, and you knew what he was saying, and I'm putting this in my air quotes for people listening, was the truth. There's always going to be some type of bias. We just can't get away with, from that. And because that's just the way we are. We see something personally and we put our own thought process, our own spin, our own history, all those things on it. So there's always going to, but Walter Cronkite, when he talked and when he cried, now I am, I was alive when Kennedy was assassinated, however, not old enough to be watching TV. But yeah, when he cried, I mean, people knew, oh my gosh, this is horrible and awful. I'm from Denver. For many, many years, we had 2 newspapers. We had the Denver Post and the Rocky Mountain News. And when the Rocky Mountain News folded, it was catastrophic, right? We were like, how? No. And then, the Denver Post still exists, but so much smaller, right? You used to get these big, giant newspapers. And now you get these teeny little things. And the reporters, I mean, you mentioned freelancers, but now you've got your reporters who are usually not specific to something anymore. They're reporting on everything because it's much smaller staff. So the sports reporter is also talking to the restaurant people, to the, all those things. And, and then we have, like you said, the internet. We as consumers want our news now. And you can't do that with legacy media. Now, granted, you can have live broadcasts, but you've got to get the truck there. You've got to, all those various things. And clearly with print media, no, you get it the next day. And I think that's probably one of the biggest things is, and it's not breaking news. I mean, yeah, we want breaking news. I am here in Atlanta. We had lots of breaking news earlier this week with, several shootings. People wanted to know right now, what's going on? Am I affected? All of those things. But we also want to know what's going on tonight in my town, right? And that comes back to that local type of news. And traditional legacy media simply can't do that. And so that's why we have become the internet junkies that we are.
Yeah, no, I agree. Rocky Mountain News went out of business, what, 10 or 15 years ago?
I'm trying to remember. So we moved here to Atlanta in 2012, and I think it went out of business before we moved. And so, but yeah, I mean, that was
2010, maybe.
Yeah.
I remember that. Yeah, I do.
That was one of the first major newspapers that folded. And the Denver Post hired as many as they could, but clearly, they already had a sports reporter. They already, all of those things. And like here in Atlanta, I still subscribe to the print version of the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. I want it on the weekends so that I can sit on Sunday and read the Sunday newspaper with my coffee and read the cartoons. And I actually read every single section. But even just in 10 years, it's gotten smaller and smaller and smaller. And a lot of it I look at and go, well, that's not current, because of course they had to publish it 24 hours before I saw it. And, and I think that's the thing is we really do. We just want everything now. And that's where we get it from the internet. The bad part is everybody with a phone is a reporter. And so we're never sure on a lot of what we're reading on the internet, and I don't care if it's Facebook, YouTube, even some of the major, outlets, we're never quite sure how truthful it is, because it was, Bob Smith on the street with his cell phone that took the thing. And we might or might not know now, especially with AI, what the heck's going on.
Yeah, and all that's coming, and that's the future of news, right?
Yeah.
Is local news reporting. And journalism school, as far as I'm concerned, is out the window. There's no real reason for it. Anybody can go to a city council meeting or a high school football game, take notes, plug those notes into AI, and have it create a story, and that story is actually really good. It could be factual. But I think what you're getting at is people like, when you go to YouTube or Rumble and you decide you want to follow somebody, it's because they resonate with you and you like them.
And you like them.
You trust them. So, because somebody had said to me, well, how do you know the stuff is factual? And I go, I really don't have to, because the public will let me know. But also, when I get a content creator, I'm like Facebook for news, so if somebody posts their kid's Little League game, they share it out to friends and family. So, the grandma and grandpa are coming to that story. Well, when I get a content creator, that content creator has an audience that follows them, and they share the story to bring that audience over to our platform. So they already trust him. You see what I mean?
Right.
And then it opens them up to a new audience. So that's what platforms do. I mean, content creators today, there's only two things that you really need them: distribution and monetization. That's all you need, right?
You gotta pay the bills.
And so that's what our platform offers for content creators, is distribution and monetization. The difference is I do local news.
Right.
Nobody does that. Okay. So, think of it this way. So you remember you've been to my site, yournews.com.
Yes. It's open right here on my other monitor.
Okay. So you know how if you mouse over local or national news, you got all these different categories. It could be, travel, food and wine, home and garden, faith. It could be sports, business, politics. I mean, there's endless amounts of categories. And so the scale is, think of the Atlanta, what is it, Journal-Constitution or Atlanta?
AJC.
Atlanta Journal-Constitution, or the Chicago Tribune or the Miami Herald. In every single city in the United States, which is 20,000 cities, with the ability to target ads right down to one zip code. So the example would be a city council meeting or somebody's Little League game is going to be sports news for a city.
Right.
But if it's the high school football game, it's still sports news, but it gets distributed to the market, which we define by television DMAs. And there's 210 of them. And then obviously the Monday Night Football game is still sports news, but gets distributed to all zip codes, right? Make sense?
Right.
So and you were in the business, so you know what I'm talking about. News organizations are aggregators. So people that have news will send a press release to the media.
Right.
And the media decides what they're going to air or publish. And you know as well as I do, 99% of it gets thrown in the garbage.
Right.
So what I am is an aggregator with massive scale. And we're bringing all the country's information under one umbrella and creating one uniform media. What I do, and by the way, like I'm in the process of opening up Canada, so that adds another 40 million to the pile, right? And there's content creators there that are on my platform today. It's called World News, or maybe they're doing like multimedia stuff, political stuff. So we have the ability to publish all this content. And so while the legacy media is laying people off, I mean, we have over 5,000 content creators on our site and growing.
Wow.
Oh my God. I could have a million. Remember, you still have that 80.
Anybody with a phone, it can be a content creator.
Well, yeah, but the people that are on my site are primarily news reporters that were displaced from the news business and have nowhere to go.
Right. And so they know what they're doing. Because it's one thing to, go to your local school board meeting, take a video and post it. It's another thing to go to the local school board meeting and write a factual article about it. With a little video, little pictures, things like that. And I think that's the thing that, is the important part. We need those other details in there besides just, hey, here's the video, because, there's that little thing called context, and I think that's what so many people forget. And I see this on Facebook all the time. Somebody will post a link and they'll do whatever. Oh my God, so-and-so said such and such. It's like, okay, what they say before, what they say after, what led up to that, all of those things. And it's like, no, they said this. Okay. Why did they say that? And I mean, think of it as, when we're talking to our spouse or somebody we're working with or a friend, you have to get the whole picture. If you just overhear or, 2 or 3 sentences, you're not going to understand the whole story. And that's where a reporter who is a good reporter tells you the whole story.
I agree. And here's the thing, on a platform, it doesn't matter if it's YouTube or Rumble or, whatever platform you're on. If those people are monetized, the marketplace decides who's going to make it, who's not going to make it. So if you don't like the way somebody's reporting on news, you just don't follow me, don't consume their information.
Right.
So because people always ask me that, how do you know if it's factual? I go, look, I don't have to. The public, if somebody goes to a city council meeting and fabricates a story, you don't think I'm not going to find out about that? We're going to be inundated with emails saying I was there. It's not true. Okay. Now, the only time it's ever happened to us is in North Palm Beach. We used to have the Little League, the kids that used to submit who won the games.
Oh my gosh, how fun.
I know. And that, the content went in North Palm Beach in sports. And then one day the team game results came in, but the other team decided to flip it so that they won, even though it wasn't true.
Oh no.
Oh my God.
That never happens.
It never happened. And what a ruckus. I mean, I must have got 50 emails, that's not true.
There were 50 very annoyed parents.
Oh God, yes. So what I'm saying is the public will always let you know you don't need a Snopes at all.
Right. The Snopes even still exist.
Oh, who the hell knows? I mean, it's all a joke.
I liked it for a while, but then it got too wackadoodle that
it's all political. So basically, even if it is factual, if it doesn't fit their narrative, it's fake.
Right. And
so
and that's the way it is with a lot of it. If it doesn't fit what they're wanting, then they don't cover it, print it, whatever. And I think that's where it's important for people to understand, okay, this outlet, MSN, CNN, Fox News, we'll talk about just the big guys. We know that they have a certain bias. As long as you understand what that bias is, then it's okay. I remember back when people used to say, oh my gosh, I hate Rush Limbaugh. Well, same thing, you either loved him or you hated him. He obviously was very well loved, just because
But he's a show. He's entertainment. He's got news.
Yes,
he's opinion.
I remember he said that one time, and of course it got widely covered because people were like, oh my gosh, where he said, please understand, I am an entertainer. I am not a reporter. Now, from his perspective, he tried to give things accurately. But he was an entertainer. Stephen Colbert, entertainer. Jon Stewart, entertainer. I mean, and as long as you're understanding that, and I remember, and I think it's still, in fact, I know it's still The Onion, right? Where it's all totally off the wall, but people believed it. I was like, really?
The National Enquirer.
Yeah. Wait a minute.
My grandmother read that religiously.
Elvis isn't still alive and living in.
Yeah, he's in the other room right now.
Which of course the National Enquirer evolved into People magazine, and some things like that. Now they're not quite so out there, but again, we have to remember who the source is and what their bias is. And then okay, well, this person likes this person doesn't like that. Therefore, I just have to keep that in mind when I'm reading what they're saying.
I totally agree. The issue that we have today is, and this, back in the 80s, there was over 500 independent news outlets. Today, there's 6.
Right.
Okay. There's 6. And they're all controlled by institutions.
Right.
It's extremely obvious that there's government, or there was government influence on the narrative. And now we know why. Through USAID, they were getting literally millions, if not billions of dollars funneled into them. I saw one, they paid $160 million to 5,000 journalists to make sure that they were pushing a specific narrative.
Right.
They were spending money across the globe. I mean, this is just a comedy show. So our own tax dollars were going for this. So this is the reason that nobody trusts these people.
Right.
And everybody's seen the videos with the, I don't know, 30, 20, 40 TVs saying the same thing, right? From Sinclair Broadcasting. Okay, that is the problem because there's no independence. It's all centralized news. And, you know, it's like, you don't, that's the reason we're in the mess we're in today.
Right.
What we need to go back to is independent news reporting. So, you know, this because
the man on the street.
So, you know, the way a newsroom works, and I've learned all this stuff from journalists, is let's say you have an investigative journalist, and I'm going to give you a factual story from someone. They had a story they've been covering for a year, and they dotted every I, crossed every T, and like she told me, it was spot on accurate. It was big, and they bring it to the news, to the news station, and the editor just edits it, but it goes in front of the review board. Okay, now I never even heard of this before. But the review board then decides if this is going to run or not, and so then Alex Newman told me, I go, Alex, is that true? He goes, Sam, not only is it true, because they write your check, they could change the story to be complete opposite.
I know, that's why headlines are always so deceptive.
Exactly.
Right?
He said that's not like, he goes, I've wrote stories where they completely change them. I'm like, that's not what I wrote. It's not even true. And there you go. But his name is attached to it. So with our platform, the journalist, the investigative journalist is the editor and is the review board. If they're good with their content, they're responsible for it. So you know how on YouTube, like YouTube is just a platform, and they provide a tool that people can use to broadcast, and then they offer ways of monetization to make money. But it's ultimately up to you to build your own brand, right? They don't call you and tell you, you need to have this guest on, you need to talk about this, you can't do that. Now we know they do say that, right? So that's
and there are some lines that should, that they say aren't crossed, child pornography, things like that. I mean, that's very different. Just general news.
So they provide all the tools for you to be successful. But you're your own brand. In new media, which is what I do, which will replace the legacy media. Each independent journalist is their own brand. It's up to them to report the news that matters to the community and build their own audience. And if they build their own audience, they will be rewarded for it because advertisers tag the content that's relevant to their ad. So if you sell golf clubs, you want to be around golf related content. If you sell pots and pans, you want to be around cooking related content. If you sell American flags, you want to be around conservative content, right? That's the point. And so it's the new way of news reporting is going to be everybody being their own brand, which is the same as YouTube. It's there. What I'm telling you right now, Deb, there's 100% chance I'm accurate on this because I'm the only guy doing it. And I'm the one, while everybody's laying off, I've picked up 5,000 people. There you go.
Right. And you're right. We've got the places that we can get our national news. We really do want, how does it affect me news? And whether it's, the local angle on something, or just, hey, there's a parade. Wait a minute. I need to route around. Whatever it is, we want the local news. And that's what I loved when I was doing public relations, was we would work with the small local newspapers, right? So I'm in Denver and every one of the small communities had their own printed newspaper. And then, of course, they transitioned and also had an online version. But we loved working with them because, you could get different stories out. And as I mentioned, I started doing this with the American Cancer Society. Now, the content that we provided, people, it was something that they wanted. Now, it was definitely not the if it bleeds, it leads. So I knew when I pitched a story, might run this week, might run 6 weeks from now, might never run. I mean, that was the thing. But we all, now, obviously, if it was timely, if you're running something for Breast Cancer Awareness Month, it's got to go in October. But we were able to get far more out there by doing that. And so, a lot of what we did, say, let's talk about Breast Cancer Awareness Month. We would find someone who was a survivor for every one of the communities that we had print newspapers for. And we would get their story and, write it up in a press release, knowing that they would edit it. And then send it. And so people went, well, hey, this is Betty Lou. I've met Betty Lou. She goes to the same church that I go to. But it was, people cared about that because even if they didn't know Betty Lou, they knew Betty Lou lived in Littleton and they lived in Littleton. And so that was so much fun. And and even with some of the major outlets and radio and things like that, we still liked targeting to the locals, because they didn't care in Colorado Springs or Fort Collins what the heck we were doing in Denver. And so that was what was so fun about it. And then everything just went kaflooey. And that is part of why I don't do public relations anymore. It's just too hard to even get noticed. And you put a lot of, from a public relations standpoint, or even a reporter standpoint, right? You put a lot of work into the story and somebody goes, and so you're like, well, why am I going to bother doing this again? And so that's what I love about what you're doing is it is local. We can, get those local stories back out there, because I think that's what people need too. There's icky stuff going on in the world, but there's nice human interest stories that are local.
We get them every day, all the time. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we're open to PR firms,
Mm-hmm.
nonprofits, posting events, things of that nature. So that's the aggregation side. So that stuff flows into me, but you get a lot of good stuff from some PR firms that, are doing really interesting stories in local communities. And that stuff is spread out all over the United States. So, we get tons of content creators that are producing content like that. It's the newspaper business model on steroids.
Right.
Because there's no physical printer distribution costs, and we can organize things right down to a specific city if need be. And so from a distribution standpoint, it's just endless. It's by subject. I have people that do Formula One auto racing news daily. Okay. I didn't even know there was daily Formula One.
I know.
They do podcasting, right? On, as well. Like they have a show. And so all those people come to me to consume that content. And then while they're there, they click around. So when somebody logs in, I know where they live because we geolocate them. And then I know what they're reading: sports, business, politics, entertainment. So it's where everything is transitioning to.
Right.
It
might be a smaller market initially, but when you have a whole bunch of smaller markets, that's where it really adds up.
That's your national audience. Okay. So so think of it this way, you've got the way any social site works, and social by definition is public participation. So my whole product is a public participation. It's local contributors that could be writing a story that has national relevance somewhere, right? We could take the story and run it national, and I have thousands of content creators, but all this content, once it comes in, it gets published, it gets shared out on social media to their followers. So this is what drives the eyeballs to my site. So the magic formula to any social site is content equals readership. Once you've aggregated all the content, you get all the readers. The game's over. So this is where the closest model to me, not in terms of business, would be Facebook, not because we publish the same type of content, but they sell ads around user-generated content. They could do it to one zip code. We can do the same thing. It's just the content's different. I don't publish people's baby pictures or what you had for dinner last night. It's news related stuff, but news could be your kid's little league game, right? That's news to somebody, but that only appears in the sports section in that city. That's it. So it's interesting how the world is changing in media. And it just so happens that, I've been doing this for so long. I just am there, right place, right time. And now I'm just in the process of moving all those people from LinkedIn over to our platform and building basically the largest news organization in the world.
Right. Well, and as you said, it is around the world. That's the cool thing with the internet. And, we were talking before the program about the fact that you have quite a group of international reporters who may or may not have freedom of the press where they live, but they have stories that should be heard worldwide. And I love that because it gives people another perspective, right?
Well, completely. I mean, every newspaper, I'm talking the dailies have a world news section, right? And where does that stuff come from? Well, it most likely comes from Associated Press, which for those of you who don't know what AP was or why it was designed, you had all these major newspapers. And if something happened in Atlanta and I'm the Chicago Tribune, I can't publish that article, but the nonprofit ap.org came about, and it was a member base, and people can join AP, and you paid 2% of gross revenue. 2%, which, if you're doing, 100 or, Palm Beach Post was doing 150 million a year, they were paying 3 million.
That's a chunk.
It's a big chunk, but the value was massive. And then what AP used the money for, so now everybody could share, but AP took the money and they built a news outlet across the globe, right? So they had people in Turkey, people in, in all these different countries. And so as the content comes in now, the world news section, those are technically everybody's writers. So they could publish all this content. With me, I have people across the globe that are signing up that are news reporters. And everything they publish is really world news, right? Like I have a gentleman when the stuff was going on in Ireland a month and a half ago, they were having riots. I had somebody on the ground covering those stories. Okay. I mean, photos and everything. It was phenomenal, right? So that I'm building my own news outlet, and these guys are looking to get this information out, and I'm distribution for them.
Right.
Very cool.
Yeah. One of the things you mentioned is it is kind of self-monitoring. But if there is a story that is on your site that you absolutely know is factually incorrect, do you leave it?
When somebody submits an article, there's a review process.
Okay.
And it is not, we're not here to fact check it, because how could I possibly know what went on in a city council meeting in your city? You couldn't. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, that's just, yeah.
And so we look at it because if we didn't look at it, we sell advertising. And everybody, I don't care what story it is, it could be somebody's Little League game. If you didn't put it to the proper place, it would all be front page national news. You wouldn't even need any other categories. So you have to make sure if it's a sports story, it goes in sports. If it's, if it's a business story, it goes in business. So because the ads, there's categories and they check I want to be around business or entertainment or politics. And so you have to make sure the stuff's in the right place and then to the right geography too. Right. So, your kid's Little League game is not national news. It's local somewhere. Right? That's how it works. So that's what we do. Now, if there's I have yet to ever see it, but if there would be a story that we absolutely know is not factual, we would probably set it to drafts and then reach out to the content creators, say, is this accurate?
Right.
But
well, I mean, you mentioned the story, the Little League scores were not correct.
How could we know? Right. I wasn't there. So for the most part, those will probably they'll get through initially. And then once somebody raises a red flag, we'll look into it. And if it's, look, you're going to have people that are just mad that it is true and don't want to believe
I know.
it.
Right.
Okay. Oh, you're going to get those people too. So, and then if there is a mistake, all the journalist has to do is we send it back to drafts, they can correct it, and then say, look, I made an error.
And of course, it is their reputation that is on the line. And so if you say, okay, we've been told that the score was inaccurate, they're going to want to get it right. Or the next time people will go, well, that wasn't right the first time. Why is it going to be right? So we're not going to read it anymore.
Exactly.
But yeah, and so they, and that's what I used to tell people, because I did media training and things like that. And I would say the reporter wants to get the story right. And, and because it's their reputation that's on the line. And so, if say I was being interviewed and I misspoke, then I want to get the right information to the reporter so that it can be corrected. But and we do misspeak, right? Sometimes, like, you get caught up in the situation, you have a brain fart, whatever, and so, but yeah, the reporter wants to get it right also. And I remember, at the American Cancer Society, I get a phone call one day from the investigative reporter from Channel 9. Her name was Paula Woodward. And she did the hard cutting, oh my gosh, type of stories. And so when she tells me who she is, my first thought was, oh crap. Right. Why? Because I knew she wasn't calling me to ask about our current fundraiser or whatever. And so, what she told me was they had been notified by someone who worked for us that some of our investments might not be where we wanted our investments. Now, American Cancer Society at that point was and it still is, one of the largest nonprofits in the world. It has money that it invests. It's just the way it works. And so, but where some of our money from Colorado was being invested was in RJ Reynolds, the tobacco company. Probably not where you want money from the American Cancer Society to be invested.
It certainly would.
Right. And so, and I'm trying to maintain my cool as I'm talking to her and not panic or do anything. And, and so I got all of her information, asked her what her deadlines were, right? All of those things. And of course, she wants to get the story right. So she's working with me on this. And so, I hang up and then I'm Chicken Little, right? Sky is falling. Turns out that she was right. That because we had told the investment person, make money, didn't say don't invest in this, or this, right? And so, but what we did was immediately divested those funds, immediately came up with new policies, all these various things. And so I called her back at the time that she wanted. And I said, okay, here's what we have done, yada, yada, yada. I have arranged for our CEO to speak with you whenever you want, all of this. And she paused and she said, well, there's no story now.
Oh, yeah, you ruined it.
Right. But that was okay. And she was fine with that. And because again, she wanted it to be accurate. And so, yeah, I mean, there was no story for her to tell because we had fixed it. Now, she did, double check to make sure that I wasn't just, blowing wind up her skirt. But yeah, it's, and that's, I think, where people have to really recognize that, now there are those reporters that, and reporter is probably not the right word to be using for them because they don't care. They want the salaciousness, all of those things. But, again, just be aware of who's talking and, okay, if they're only the headline grabber, then, maybe take what they're saying through a filter.
Yeah, well, hey, look, at least he brought it to your attention because
I
I do understand that, people
right.
have big amounts of money and they give it to a
Mm-hmm.
money manager and
Right.
say, just turn it into more and, make good
and they
investments.
did. I mean, that was probably one of the biggest things that we could be making money with, but just like we said, not appropriate. But yeah, it is something that is just so interesting to see because we do get caught up in, well, Bob on Facebook said this. Okay, where did Bob on Facebook get his information? And so that's where then when you go to your site, it's been vetted. And they are professional people as opposed to Bob on Facebook, who is providing the content.
Yeah. So on our site, it's going to be all news related content. But
Mm-hmm.
like you said, the only thing you have
Mm-hmm.
as a journalist is your credibility.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And the moment you lose it, it's over.
And
so
we've
this
seen
is why,
that happen, right?
Oh God. I mean, look at the legacy media. I mean, these people went from having millions of people watch them to literally nothing.
Right.
Okay. Nobody. I mean, so the public's not dumb. Okay. And they will find out. And then once they lose trust in you, it's over. So what's going to rise out of this? Look, you're going to have, and this is what I tell the younger kids is there's never been a paradigm in history where the old was part of the new, meaning that the guy that, had the telegraph, okay, didn't go to the phone, right? Well,
No.
bad idea, so
Mm-hmm.
it didn't work out.
Mm-hmm.
There's always a product that replaces
Mm-hmm.
something else. And,
Mm-hmm.
the people that had the horse and buggy didn't
Mm-hmm.
transition to the
Mm-hmm.
automobile,
Right.
So, it's
Kodak didn't transition. Blockbuster didn't transition. Mm-hmm.
it's the way it works. It's,
Mm-hmm.
so the in the you've been involved in newsrooms
Mm-hmm.
before, right? So you know
Mm-hmm.
how you
Yeah.
have a staff of people and
Mm-hmm.
they're there
Mm-hmm.
forever, right? Once you
Right.
work your way up the chain,
Mm-hmm.
you've been in
Mm-hmm.
that company for
Mm-hmm.
years. And as younger people come in, they come in as interns, and then it's
Mm-hmm.
really hard to get ahead.
Mm-hmm.
Well, none of
They
those
kind
old
of
people,
have to die.
yeah, they have to die. I mean, so or get laid off or let go.
Retire. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So in this case,
Mm-hmm.
the opportunity for the younger
Mm-hmm.
generation coming out of school
Mm-hmm.
is they have the opportunity to take over
Right.
because the old guard is
Right.
never
There
going to.
isn't an old guard.
Well,
Mm-hmm.
if the guy at the
Mm-hmm.
post that's been there for 30
Mm-hmm.
years, he's not going to come to my platform.
No.
It's not for him.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
So it's going to be the 25-year-old that
Mm-hmm.
is politically
Mm-hmm.
passionate, let's say it's
Right.
politics, and
Mm-hmm.
they're going to be covering those
Mm-hmm.
same things, and
Mm-hmm.
that person's going to
Mm-hmm.
become the go-to person
Mm-hmm.
in the community.
Mm-hmm.
And that opportunity didn't exist
Mm-hmm.
20 years ago, but all
Right.
of a sudden today
Mm-hmm.
you could be it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where we changed the landscape
Mm-hmm.
of media. And there couldn't be a better opportunity to be
Mm-hmm.
in news right now,
Right.
especially for the younger
Mm-hmm.
generation. For the
Mm-hmm.
people that have been part of the old guard, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, they're done.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really see them
Right.
transitioning. You'll have a few,
Mm-hmm.
Tucker Carlson, but these are
Mm-hmm.
big brand names,
Right.
right? Where they have a massive draw.
Well, and they have a massive team.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They got money.
Mm-hmm. Right, right. And so it's not that they're doing it, it's that their team is doing it. And it is interesting, one of the things, and I don't really watch television news. I know what's going on in the world, but I'm not going to sit and just really watch it. But what I have observed is, there is the old adage, and this is what I grew up with: if it bleeds, it leads. And so it's the, what the heck is happening that's major. But in so many cases, when you watch a lot of the news, it is entertainment. And I like the one program that I try to never miss is CBS Sunday Morning. And almost now they are timely stories, but they're almost all the feel good interview type of stories. Obviously, when things happen, they address it, but I like those stories. I know there are people at war. I know that there are people that are shooting other people. I know all of that, but I want to know about the nice, fun stuff. And that's why people want their local news, because that's where the fun stuff is.
I agree. I agree that, that's the whole key. All those local
Mm-hmm.
newspapers are going away,
Mm-hmm.
and all we're doing is bringing that back. I mean, everybody's really, you can get the Monday
Mm-hmm.
night football game anywhere, but it's the
Right.
local stuff that
Mm-hmm.
really matters in the
Mm-hmm.
community.
Mm-hmm.
And that to me is the most important
Right.
piece. So,
Mm-hmm.
like I said, that's our niche, Deb,
Mm-hmm.
and that's our whole focus. That's what
Mm-hmm.
gives us massive
Mm-hmm.
scale. And ultimately, the whole game plan here is to put the power of the press back in the hands of the
Mm-hmm.
people where it
Right.
belongs,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how you feel, but I'm of the opinion that you really need to have free speech.
Mm-hmm.
You need to have both sides be heard.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
And the
because there's
public
always more than one side, folks. Remember
yeah,
that.
and you let the public decide,
Right.
which story they want to go with,
Mm-hmm.
and how they feel about a specific issue.
Mm-hmm.
It shouldn't be the way it's been,
Mm-hmm.
where you have suppression of
Mm-hmm.
free speech,
Right.
where you have somebody like YouTube,
Mm-hmm.
which completely kicked off
Mm-hmm.
all the people that turned out were right
Mm-hmm.
because it didn't fit the narrative.
Right.
And people lost their lives because of
Mm-hmm.
it, because you didn't
Mm-hmm.
have the opportunity
Mm-hmm.
to be able to tell people,
Mm-hmm.
you're a doctor and you're saying,
Mm-hmm.
look, I've handled this many COVID cases.
Mm-hmm.
Here's how many deaths were because
Mm-hmm.
of this.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, you can't say that, censor them. Well,
Mm-hmm.
why
Right.
not?
Right.
I'm just
Mm-hmm.
pointing out facts.
Mm-hmm.
This is why the people
Mm-hmm.
died. And so, that to me, that reporting
Mm-hmm.
is the most important.
Mm-hmm.
And you
Right.
need to be able
Mm-hmm.
to have both
Mm-hmm.
sides. And so I'm
Yeah, and then
hopeful.
as you said, you make your decision.
You do,
And
not me.
yeah.
I'm a
Mm-hmm.
platform.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you the reader makes their decision.
Mhm.
And I tell people, and get lots of information. I counsel people who are on a cancer journey. And so they or a loved one has been diagnosed, right? And of course, the first thing we do is Dr. Google. And now people are using AI. You know, and but I tell you, it's okay to get that information, but then you have to filter it, and realize that there's lots of reasons for everything, and so recognize here's what's going on. But yeah, back to the reporters, when somebody's paying your salary, it does make a difference as to what you're going to do. I mean, and it is very hard to be true independent when, your boss might say, but wait a minute, that story is going to really annoy our biggest advertiser.
Yes.
Or you can't write about this beloved sports figure because he's a beloved sports figure. All of those things.
Can I add one more?
Uh-huh.
We can't run this story because a lot of high-ranking officials were having sex with children.
Yeah.
Epstein, give me a break.
Right.
So,
yeah.
yes,
and
we
let's
have to
be
protect
honest.
them.
Yeah, politics on both sides does this, folks. It is not one-sided.
No, it isn't one-sided. The point is that article should be run.
Yeah.
And so, and I'm going to tell you something else, Deb. I know this is coming.
Mm-hmm.
So as we start building a bigger news outlet and have literally tens of thousands of people and hundreds of thousands of people, this is going to change the landscape of media, number one. But number two, it's going to really affect politicians because it's going to be much harder to get away with stuff because when you have an open press where everything runs, you're going to, I mean, even on a local level, if somebody uncovers dirt about, the mayor in the city of whatever.
Why is that person coming out of that hotel?
Okay. Right. And so those stories are going to be run. And so I really see this as becoming kind of the next WikiLeaks. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean, because I think transparency. I think what you're going to see is transparency. And that's what everybody wants. What's the real truth? I want to know. And so there's a lot of people that have the goods on other people that are afraid to come forward, or maybe they won't come forward because, they're not only are afraid, but maybe they're friends with them today, but tomorrow they might be pissed at them. But the mainstream media wouldn't run those stories. That's where we come in.
Right.
Because those articles, if they're factual, are going to be run. And this is what I believe now. It's gonna force the political landscape to do things above board. That's what it's going to do.
And corporations, all of that. And I mean, that does come back to every person is holding, the media in their hand to either read or report.
That's it. Putting the power of the press back in the hands of the people where it belongs. Unheard of, right? That was all the crap we were sold. What it turns out was that the media was in charge of everything, and they let you know what was important to you, and anything that they didn't go into their narratives was suppressed. That ship has sailed. I
mean, I started by talking about Walter Cronkite. I mean, he clearly would take his little piece of paper and go, I want to talk about this. Nope, not that one. And, not him. Maybe it was the producer, right? But nope, that one's not getting covered. And some of it was simply time constraints. I mean, they had 30 minutes or whatever to do the program. But, it was also, no, we can't annoy this person, so that story can't go. No, so it wasn't that they were censoring. It was, I think here's the thing that so many people forget is they ultimately, they are a business. And, you were talking about advertising and all of that. If they don't have eyeballs, whether you're reading, watching, whatever, then you're not going to have advertisers. You can't run your business. I mean, so that's why, they look at it and go, okay, we can't run that story, or, oh, we need a little bit more about that one.
First of all, you're correct, but who are the people supporting them? So if you're talking about network TV, it's called the healthcare companies that are coming out with the vaccines.
Oh
okay,
my God.
So
and
that
all
is
of
disgusting.
It. Yeah.
It is disgusting.
Yeah. I mean,
that's what was supporting them.
Well, and by the way,
US Aid. right? USAID was
Yeah.
the other part.
Hmm.
So if they were to go out and report on the actual facts, they would not only lose the government money, they
Hmm.
would lose the healthcare
Hmm.
companies' money.
Right.
So
Well, and it's all sorts of drugs. I mean, I'm amazed when I actually do watch regular TV, and I'm not, because I like watching, other stuff where I can either, if it's on my DVR, right, I'm fast forwarding. But I just the number of advertisers that are drug related, whatever it is, and I mean, clearly that's where right now the big money is. But yeah, I'm like, I don't think I'm the target market for an erectile dysfunction ad. But that's what's gonna. But then wait, Christmas, it's all of the toys. Well, I'm not the market for that either. But yeah, I mean, it's wild and crazy. So we've only got about 5 minutes left. I want to talk a little bit more in depth about your platform because I've got it open here on my desktop. And the first big button says location. And the second big button says submit news. Which means I personalize it and I can be a reporter. And I love that concept because that's what we're talking about for the whole thing. So just tell us a little bit more about all of this.
of course, yes. So there's two types of content creators. You have
Mm-hmm.
the monetized and the
Mm-hmm.
non-monetized.
Right.
The submit news button, people can click that, create an account. Those would be for people that have a classified that they want to post, or maybe
Okay.
they want to post an event. It could be a PR firm
Okay.
or a nonprofit. It allows the public to interact and share in the narrative
Mm-hmm.
locally, right, with opinions
Mm-hmm.
and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
If you scroll down to the bottom of the page, you're going to see something that says become a citizen journalist.
Ah.
These are so there, when you click that link, it takes you to a couple videos. They're short, you watch them.
Mm-hmm.
Below that, there's an application.
Mm-hmm.
So if somebody's interested in actually becoming a news reporter,
Mm-hmm.
you don't need to have experience like we talked about
Right.
earlier. I mean, anybody could
Mm-hmm.
go to a city council meeting,
Mm-hmm.
take notes,
Mm-hmm.
throw it into
Mm-hmm.
AI and say, write me a news
Yeah.
article on this
Fix
using,
the grammar.
yeah, make it so it's better.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And
Mm-hmm.
and it will spit you out
Mm-hmm.
something. And if you like it, you
Mm-hmm.
run with that. I mean, so
Right.
the tool is what
Mm-hmm.
it is.
Mm-hmm.
You know what you want to
Mm-hmm.
say. Just have AI say it for you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden you're a news
Mm-hmm.
reporter and you have the ability to be
Mm-hmm.
able to be monetized off
Mm-hmm.
of that. I mean, this works just like YouTube. You build
Mm-hmm.
an audience, and as you build an audience, the money you
Mm-hmm.
have will start, increasing and
Mm-hmm.
increasing per article, and eventually you'll have 20,000
Right.
followers. And when
Mm-hmm.
you post something, you'll have
Mm-hmm.
20,000 people
Mm-hmm.
log in to read it immediately, and you make
Mm-hmm.
money off of it. The last piece of this is, companies like mine that are my background's investment banking.
Mm-hmm.
I worked at Lehman Brothers years ago.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We had this conversation, and so the reason, I believe we're in the mess we're in today is because you have six institutions that
Right.
control.
Yeah. And Rupert Murdoch or whoever who own
Mm-hmm.
them. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they own them, and
Mm-hmm.
and so, like any tech giant, and
Mm-hmm.
this is the next tech.
Mm-hmm.
This is the market that hasn't been
Mm-hmm.
filled. I fill a void.
Mm-hmm.
And all these companies were funded by Silicon Valley. You can't
Mm-hmm.
name one that wasn't.
Right.
Facebook, Amazon,
Mm-hmm.
LinkedIn, Netflix, they were all funded with hundreds
Mm-hmm.
of millions, if not billions of dollars to
Mm-hmm.
scale. What I've decided to do is not go to Silicon Valley and
Mm-hmm.
not raise capital through
Mm-hmm.
institutional money. For any of you who know what institutional money is,
Mm-hmm.
it comes with strings.
Right.
You sign their deals. They
Mm-hmm.
trust me, at least at
Mm-hmm.
this level, you do.
Mm-hmm.
So what we decided to do was do something called an equity crowd fund, which
Mm-hmm.
is not like a Give, Send, Go or a
Mm-hmm.
GoFundMe. It is actual securities run by a brokerage firm.
Ah. Mm-hmm.
So oh yeah, so it
Mm-hmm.
comes with FINRA, SEC
Mm-hmm.
regulated.
Mm-hmm.
So we're raising capital through individuals because
Mm-hmm.
to me,
And there's a
if you're
button, folks, that says invest.
yeah. So then it takes you to another
Mm-hmm.
website and it'll say Nico Ventures, which Nico
Mm-hmm.
Ventures is the holding company like News Corp owns
Okay.
Fox
Okay.
News and a
Mm-hmm.
bunch of other ones. But there's a description. It tells you what we're doing and there's a video you can watch. And if you like it, people can spend $200 in anywhere in between. And the
Mm-hmm.
reason for this is I want to distribute this in the hands of the people.
Mm-hmm.
That's the most important
Mm-hmm.
piece to me because, like I said, if we're a news organization that's for the people, by the people,
Mm-hmm.
how would you feel if I said, yeah, we just got BlackRock and Vanguard as our
Right.
investors?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Oh, it's not for the people. It's for
Mm-hmm.
them, by them,
Mm-hmm.
is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
So, we've raised about a third. We're doing a small offering of
Mm-hmm.
$1.2 million. I'll follow it up with a much bigger one.
Mm-hmm.
And then, we have we'll end up with a public offering. I already have that all set in place. So to me, we believe this needs to be owned by the people. It's bigger than me. It's bigger than you. This needs to be distributed to everyone. And that's why we're going this route. So there's no institutional money in my deal. There won't be on this one. There won't be on the next one. When you go public, they'll be able to buy it on the
right.
So you can't stop them from there. But most of the ownership will be the regular people, and that's the way we want this to be. So for anybody interested in that, you could go to Your News and go to the bottom and click the invest button and just learn more about what we're doing. If you want to participate, we believe this is the next mainstream media.
Right. I love it. And we will have a link to the website in the show notes, as well as your LinkedIn profile. Well, okay. Sam, this really has been so interesting, and hope that it made people think. I mean, that's what we want, right? Is we want people to be thinking about it. Do you have any final thoughts that you want to leave everyone with?
No matter what side of the aisle you're on, the truth is always the most important thing. I mean, you can't live in a lie. I mean, you have to at least have some kind of common sense. And so with the legacy media going the way of the dinosaur, ultimately, what we do is going to continue democracy, right? Both sides will be heard. So here's what I will tell you. We will never censor either side. That won't happen.
Oh my gosh. I love it. I love it. Well, I'm Deb Creer. I've been having a fascinating discussion with Sam Anthony of YourNews Media. And until next time, everyone have a great day.
Tune in for our next program for even more trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. The Business Power Hour, hosted by Deb Creer, is proud to be part of the C-Suite Network.